Would you like to learn quickest and easiest ways to create cards using embossing folders? Are you in a hurry? Do you need to make a quick card that still looks good? So these ideas are for you. I created 6 cards. I'm not going to show you the embossing of the panels because I did that on my previous video. You can watch that one at the end if you haven't. And I will talk you through all of the ideas. They're very easy and you can get them done in just a few minutes. So I have this panel that I embossed in the Spellbinders folder, 3D folder. Most of them will be 3D embossing folders. And I embossed half a page letter size and I'm going to use it as my card base. So all I'm doing here is spraying some glitter and I'll let it dry for a second and I'll come back to it later. This video will be a bit different, so I'm not going to show you one card from beginning to end. I'll show you everything I'm doing in the order I'm doing it. I had all the panels embossed already, so I am kind of ink blending and adding whatever I want before I actually can assemble them. So this is the easiest way to add some interest to 3D embossing folders, and it's to ink blend on them. So if you ink blend on the embossed side, the one that has the bumps, all you need to do is use a big brush and then you go kind of light-handed and you add on the ink just to the top surface that is embossed. If you press it very hard, you will end up with ink all over your panel. So try to keep it light and add pressure as you need to. This one, I added the lighter color only on the Monstera leaves, and then I came in and I added the darker one in the center. Here are my brushes. I am showing you that I'm gonna add just whatever is left on the brushes. I actually didn't add ink to them at all. And I'm gonna use them in rainbow colors. This was a 2D embossing folder. And I am just adding color, following the colors of the rainbow. I started with pink and then purple, dark blue, turquoise, green, yellow, orange, and finished with red. And I am making sure that those colors overlap a little bit because it is a 2D folder. I did get a little bit of ink on my background, but I didn't mind it. Like, it doesn't look bad. So here I'm going to put those 2 previous backgrounds on top of my mat, my ink blending mat, and I'm going to use some splatters. So this is another way for you to add interest. It's to add some splatters, and I'm gonna use it in gold for all of my cards. There I'm gonna add it, and I'm gonna do these 2 first, but you see me doing it to another one later. And so if you add different colors, you get different results on your cards. So the first one I added basically just teal shades, which is not a common shade for leaves, but it's okay. I really like teal with gold. The second one, I added gold, and this one, I'm gonna add gold as well. Actually, the second one was the butterfly one, and I added rainbow colors. And this one, I think it would have been better if I had added just a very light layer of color all over, but I didn't do that, so I added gold just to the center of those kind of square or diamond shapes. And it gives it a little bit of dimension. I think the camera doesn't capture it very great, but in person you can actually see it's not just a shine, it makes it look like there's more depth to it. Here I'm bringing my scraps. I do keep them separate in those leaves. So whenever I need a certain color, I don't have to get a full page. I am cutting 1-inch strips from different pastel shades, kind of rainbow colors. And I am going to make a 5x7 panel out of it. This is just printing paper. I cut it down to 5 by 7, and I'm gonna glue those strips just straight. Maybe I should have tried it diagonally. Maybe it would have looked better. But I actually like the way it looks at the end. So I'm just gonna stick them down in rainbow order. Again, I started from the very light pink to a very light kind of coral, I would say, instead of red. And I'm gonna emboss this one on camera for you. This is the only one that I did on camera. The other ones, as I said, I showed them on my previous video. And this one I'm also using Spellbinder's embossing folder. As I said on my previous video, those are my favorite. Just because the size of them allows for you to create cards in several different sizes. So most of them will be produced having an A2, American A2 size card in mind. And I find that a bit constricting. And this one, I'm just gonna swipe ink on top of the embossed area. That's a good idea. That's very quick and easy for you to do. You're just embossing your panel and you get whatever color you want to add on top. And you swipe very lightly. Again, if you press it down, you will get ink on the background. And then again, I sprayed some glitter. Now for this one, I am going to ink blend different colors. I am pressing this one, the first ink down, because I wanted it to be on the background as well. I didn't want it to be plain white. And then I'm gonna intensify the color on the embossed areas. So you can press down your brush and add ink to your background as well. I much rather, if I had planned this in advance, ink blend the whole panel before embossing, because then I will have like a more uniform layer of color on the background. But if you forget, like I did, because I didn't plan it, you can do it afterwards. It's not a problem. And then you just keep the light hand to add the layers on top. So I did add a bit of brown, a bit of kind of red, and then I came on top and I added gold to it. And then I'm also adding those gold splatters. So it has a lot of shine and just a subtle change in color here and there. It looks to me a bit like mixed media, but that's me being bold. Okay, this one I'm doing the other way around. I'm adding ink to the debossed areas. So I'm adding gold to my leaves, and I added just plain white to the flowers because it really goes into the nooks and crannies of the details, and it gives it a lot of dimension. It doesn't look that great on video, but on camera and like on the pictures and in person, it looks way better, this one. And what you could do once you finish this panel is to just swipe ink all across, and you will get the ink on kind of the what's not embossed at all, the flat surface, and it would change the color. So most people would do black. I just added some the plum shade all around the border, and it gave me a very dramatic result. I really like the way it looks in person. It looks really, really cool. But if you, especially if you got ink in places you didn't want to, if you just swipe a very dark color on top, you will cover all of your mistakes. I didn't have that many mistakes because I did it slowly, but it looks great. And that you can do on a white panel. I did it on a dark one just for a different look. And some contrast and some drama. Let's not forget those. Okay, here's folding my card base in half, just reinforcing that fold. And I'm going to add a white panel inside because I'm going to use that vellum card base just as like an overlay. I'm gonna add just a few dots to the very corners of my card base, and I'm gonna hide a few dots behind those gold triangles near the folding line. and that's more than enough to hold it together. So wherever you add the ink to vellum, you can actually hide the glue very easily behind it. You don't want to add too much glue because that will make your vellum warp. So do as little as you can, but this is more than enough. Those, I don't know, 6 little dots of glue will hold it together. So I'm just starting to assemble my bases so I can finish my cards. I'm gonna add all glue behind all of those panels that I showed you how we added color to, and I'm going to start sticking them down, and I'm going to finish assembling them. So for the sentiments, I used die cuts on all of mine, but feel free to stamp your sentiments, either die cut or fussy cut around them and add them to your panel. And then some jewels, and that's it. You really don't need much for embossed cards, just a little bit of color and you change it completely. And again, you change the look a lot by adding ink either on the embossed or the bossed side. The colors that you change, and also if you're heavy handed or not. And then you can also always swipe your colors. So, those are the main ideas that I am sharing with you. You can actually create cards very quickly, very easily by combining those ideas. And then it's just what you add on top. You don't really need much, maybe a few neutral die cuts, vellum die cuts, and stuff like that. Here I'm bringing some of them closer to the camera so you can see the detail. And for this sentiment, I die cut it 4 times, 3 times in white, once in gold. I think I used gold for all of my sentiments, and I just layered them up off camera. And here I'm going to use my tip ruler to stick it down straight. This one, I also had some iridescent vellum butterflies. They're very, very small, from Simon Says Stamp. This sentiment is also from Simon Says Stamp. And I'm going to add a few of them here and there in between the pattern that I embossed. And it's very subtle, but in person you can see better. I can't forget the dots on the eyes. I needed some birthday cards, so I think I created 2 this time. But the other sentiments I changed around a little bit, so I have a bit of diversity. But I do make way more birthday cards than any other cards because they are the ones that I use the most. I use them myself. I get asked for a lot of them, and sometimes I take some of them for my mother-in-law. She really likes to use them as well. So I love butterflies. This is one of my favorite cards because of that, and I combine 2 things that I love: butterflies and rainbows. And if you actually haven't watched my video on how to customize card, this is one idea that I would use to customize a card. Like, I would make a card full of rainbows for someone who likes rainbows, or with butterflies for someone who likes butterflies. And if you haven't watched that video, please check it out later. I am not adding anything else to this one. No jewels, nothing else, because I didn't think it needed. So in person, you can actually see better. I find that it's very hard to film gold mirror cardstock or take pictures as well. It doesn't show very great on camera, but in person, you can see it very well. And for this one, I die cut a very thin frame. That one is the A7 size from Simon Says Stamp. It's an older die set, but I use it a lot. And then I just cut on my guillotine trimmer a piece of vellum that was slightly smaller than the frame. I glued the frame around the vellum off camera. Again, my sentiment has 4 layers. I am gluing the sentiment to the vellum and then adding glue behind the sentiment and behind the frame to hide the adhesive. And just because I felt like it was a very busy background, and bringing that piece of vellum would kind of make the sentiment stand out a little bit better against the busy background. And again, it looks way better in person than in camera. So here's the final result. You can see a bit of the shine and shimmer from the gold spray and from the ink that I swiped. This one, I am just adding the sentiment, and then I'm gonna scatter a lot of jewels all around it. I chose the ones that are kind of like pearls, but they are gold. So they have, depending on the size, they have a lot of dimension. And I felt like they went together well with the busy background. Again, I used the vellum shadow backing on this one because it is kind of a busy background. It doesn't have like contrasting colors or anything bright colors like to make it go lost, but because it has a lot of movement and a lot of dimension, I felt like it was a bit busy. And I'm making it even busier with my jewels because why not, right? Is there such a thing as too busy? You guys let me know. Sometimes I do go over the top. So this is the final result. Again, it looks so much better in person. I am going to take a sabbatical to go spend some time with my mom because she's not doing very great at the moment with her health, and I hope to get way better light over there to film videos and take pictures. But here I do struggle with the lights. I am adding just a small hugs to this one because it is like it would kind of hide the background if I used a different sentiment or a bigger sentiment, and I thought that one tied in great. For this one, again, I'm adding a sentiment. This embossing folder is by Altenew. It's an older one. I believe Spellbinders is coming out with a similar thing now on their clubs. And the sentiment is also by Altenew. Again, another older one. Oldies but goodies. And just adding this one straight to the background, and I'm gonna add some of those jewels, the same jewels that I used on the previous card. And I just scatter them in the spaces in between those monstera leaves, and I called it done. I did consider adding some monstera leaves die cuts to this one because I do have a die set also from Mountain New, and I actually made them and whatnot, but when I tried to add them, I thought it was way too easy, way too distracting, and I gave up. So I'm saving those for a later card. Here I'm just gluing down those pearls, those gold pearls. I'll show you the result here in a second, where I find the gold and teal always go very well together, even though this pearly looks more blue than it is. Now the last one, I showed you the panel before. I just glued the sentiment off camera because I forgot to record it, and then I realized that I used recycled paper and it was showing through the vellum. So this is how I'm fixing it. I either cut one more time my sentiment out of white, plain white cardstock, and I'm going to glue it on the inside. So I'm just looking and making sure that it lines up well, and then I'm going to press it down, put some weights on it, and once I'm done, this is it. I find that this card is very neutral, so it could work for, it could be given just for anyone of any gender. And I tried to make some cards that are a bit less girly girls, I guess, because that's how I make most of them. And sometimes not everybody's happy to get those. Let's just say that. But most of my cards are very happy, full of flowers and full of colors and rainbows and whatnot. And I find that some guys sometimes prefer cards that are a bit less over the top, I guess. Once the sentiment, the glue is dried, this card is done and it has a beautiful shine. You can see it on camera. And these are all my ideas. for today. I hope you had fun, happy crafting, and please tag me if you do anything inspired by these.